Okay, on this question, they're wanting us to find the intercepts of that equation. So they're giving us the equation. They want us to find the intercepts and then use the intercepts to make the graph, some kind of line down here on the graph. Okay, so how do we do it? What do we know about intercepts? Well, whenever you find intercepts, you have to plug in the other letter as 0. So to find the x-intercept, I'm going to plug in y equals 0. Take this equation right there, plug in y is 0. So what do I get? 3x minus 2 times 0 plus 6 equals 0, like that. Bring it over here. That's 3x minus 0 plus 6 equals 0. That means 3x plus 6 is 0, right? Because that 6 minus 0 is just 6. And then subtract 6 from both sides. We're trying to solve for x here. And so 3x, bring it down here. 3x is minus 6. Last step, divide by 3. And x is minus 2. So we got x. So the x-intercept then is minus 2. So that means right here is where it hits the x-axis. How are we doing so far? Does that make sense? And let me write in the answer here. Kind of squeeze it in here. So that's minus 2, 0. Why is that minus 2, 0? Well, x came out to be minus. Remember, x was first. And y from the beginning right here, we plugged in 0. Okay, so, and then we're going to do the second one also. But I want to make sure this is good so far. So to find an x-intercept, you plug in y0. You plug in the opposite letter as 0. Why? Why? Because when you do, you see you get a point on the x-axis. See, a point on the x-axis has to have a height of 0, doesn't it? If it's really on this x-axis, any point on the x-axis, notice all these points on the x-axis have a height of 0, have a y value of 0, don't they? So if you want to take the equation and find a point on the x-axis, you got to plug in y0. When you plug in y0 right here to the equation and then solve for x, x is negative 2. So x negative 2 goes with y0. There's the point on the graph, which is back 2 up 0. Okay, next, let's do the y-intercept. Now, how are we going to find the y-intercept? Well, likewise, we're going to plug in x0 to the equation. So I'm going to take the equation right over here. 3, oh, not 3x, I'm going to plug in x. Yeah, let me just do it right here. Plug in right there, x is 0. We get 3 times 0 minus 2y plus 6 is 0. So that's just gone, that's just 0. Minus 2y plus 6 is 0. And then subtract 6 on both sides. That's 2y is minus 6. Divided by minus 2. Was positive 3, right? 2 negatives divided to be positive. Positive 3. So that means this is the point 0, 3. Remember the x and the y, which is right here, 0, 3. So again, how did that happen? That's a point, by the way, on the y-axis. But the y-axis is the vertical one, the one that goes straight up and down. So what we did is we plugged in x0. Why did we plug in x0? Well, because any point that's on the y-axis, they're trying to make us find a y-intercept. Any point on the y-axis, look at all these points on the y-axis. Every single point on the y-axis is over 0. Its x-coordinate is 0. So if you want to find a point on the y-intercept, you got to plug in x0, don't you? So I plugged in x0 right there to the equation. Solve for y was 3. So x0 led to y3, 0, 3. And now if you put these two dots on the graph, you can get your line. Let me see, how would we do it? Just like this. You'll get your line. Just click those two dots, and there we go. So the moral of the story is whenever you want to find intercept points with an equation, you plug in the opposite letter as 0. Does everybody see that? To find an x-intercept, you plug in y0 and solve. To find a y-intercept, you plug in x0. Opposite letter 0. That's what you got to do. And there we go.